Hello everyone, welcome to Human Resources in History. This podcast aims to offer insights from 7,000 years of human history to help modern human resource practices. This is an introductory episode of our podcast. I am your host Makoto, data scientist and journalist.
Hello everyone, I'm Jin, your co-host. I'm an HR professional and a passionate history lover.
This podcast series is not just a history lesson. It's a mission to draw connections between the past and the present. Together with us, let us explore the crossroad of human resources and history. So Jin, I don't know how to express this feeling. We are finally bringing this podcast into the world. Are you getting excited?
Yes, I'm very excited. Hope you too. I don't sound excited.
Come on, Jin. This is a commemorable day for us, right? I know we spend a lot of time preparing for this, but you sound like you're already tired.
No. I'm very excited.
For me, it's like giving a birth to a baby. But let's not be overjoyed too much, because it's just the start. So, shall I let you introduce the concept of this podcast?
Sure. So the concept of this podcast, Human Resources in History, was born from the idea that the strategies of ancient generals and the wisdom of the people from the past can serve as a playbook for modern HR practices. So we believe that by exploring historical events, we can discover why HR strategies succeeded or failed and apply those lessons to the present. This is our concept of the podcast.
That sounds very fascinating. You know, there are many books, podcasts, or YouTube channels talking about history or human resources, right? But I don't think any of them talking about the history from the angle of human resource management.
Yes, I agree. So this is exactly the point of this podcast. You know, there are a lot of books and podcasts about human resources management. For example, you can read books about Google's hiring practices. You know, McKinsey has nice talent development methods. It's sure that learning from contemporary HR examples is undoubtedly valuable. But this approach can often overlook fundamental human principles that hold true across time.
Okay.
So without an understanding of these principles, we may end up with superficial strategies. Even if a strategy appears effective, if you don't deeply understand why it works, you are likely to struggle with its implementation. So this is why studying historical facts provides a fundamental perspective that can help in crafting robust and effective HR strategies.
I mean, you know, if you go to the business section of your nearby bookstore, there are so many kinds of books talking about human resource management, right?
Yes.
Of course, they do look interesting and useful. I even sometimes read some of them. I buy some of them. Actually, when I got promoted to a manager in my previous company, my coworker even gave me a book about leadership. It was a very nice book. I would say, like this example, it's really a common practice to gain knowledge from books. But you're saying that it's not enough just to read those books, right?
Of course, it's important, as I said. It's not meaningless at all. It's very helpful. But truly understand why this leadership is great or why it might not work in your specific situation. Just reading about the contemporary practices is not enough. That's what I believe. We have plenty of long human history, which is 7,000 years. Just learning the human resources practices in the last 20 years, of course it's valuable, but why don't we learn more and get more insights and get the deeper understanding about human beings? So this is what we're gonna do.
So that's why you're suggesting studying historical facts is important. But I would say you can just read history books, can't you? Or is it not that simple?
Yeah, it's not that simple. Because our podcast is to connect between human resource practices and history. Let me give you some examples. Like you can read classical literature like Caesar, Napoleon, Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, whoever you want to read. But let's say Machiavelli, famous person who wrote Il Principe, right? Book about war. So Machiavelli says, the ends justify the means. So this is a famous quote of him. By the way, well, probably he didn't say exactly that phrase, but yeah, the ends justify the means is a famous quote, right? But think about it. What would happen if your manager took this paraphrase at face value and the team culture based on it, you can probably easily imagine that team members might breach internal rules because whatever they do, if the outcome is good, it's okay. So this is a culture.
It's like your manager tells you to walk through the danger zone in the factory because it's faster to reach at some place, or your manager's, for example, hovering over your shoulder and listening to your sales calls to check if you're following the script word by word, like this kind of micromanagement style.
Yeah, exactly. It can lead to toxic culture. They may breach internal rules, but worst case, they may break the law. We need to get the insights from historical events or history books, and then review what we do in HR practices. So we need to connect the dots in a way. This exercise is what we're going to do.
Okay, so studying historical facts is important, but there are certain risks if you don't know how to extract the insights.
Yeah, exactly.
So our role is to focus on the timeless principles of human activities behind those historical events, and then transform the lesson into a useful insights to the modern HR practices.
Exactly. We want to dedicate this podcast series to this specific purpose.
So can we talk about the challenges faced by people dealing with the HR in the modern world? Oh, but by the way, let's make it clear. When you say HR, it's not only about people in HR departments, right?
That's correct. Of course, our target is HR people. But when we say HR, we probably say like HR than leaders in our podcast. But when we say HR refers to any people dealing with human resources management. For example, team leaders who are responsible for managing teams and hiring new talents and helping team members develop their skills.
Okay.
And also what we do in this podcast will be relevant for executives because those people are responsible for companies' human resources strategies in a big picture.
Okay, so for the people involving in human resources in a broader definition, as you said, would be our target listeners, right? Then what kind of challenges are they facing nowadays?
Yeah, I think the first point that comes to my mind is AI. With the emergence of AI, routine tasks are disappearing rapidly. You probably saw this a lot in the data science domain, right? And then so employees are now expected to be more creative than ever and then leverage a variety of hard and soft skills to be irreplaceable. But this new landscape requires executives, managers, and team leads who can skillfully navigate and guide their organization in a dynamic environment.
Okay.
So Makoto, you worked as a lead data scientist and you manage the team. Probably you can tell us how you experienced this transition.
Yeah, for me, it was truly a challenging task, for sure, to help my team's talent development. I was managing a team of data scientists. I think there are 4 people and they're all technical. But I feel like having a skill only in technical field was definitely not enough because, as you said, AI can do at least a part of your job, right? And this fraction of the job that AI can already do is getting bigger and bigger every day. So I try to help the team become capable more in a comprehensive way, including understanding business needs, polishing the communication skills, and translating the business problem into technical problem or vice versa. So it has also increased the importance of teamwork and collaboration because, not a single person can have all the necessary skills. So collaboration became more and more important.
Yeah, it's a very interesting case because we heard many times, the word unprecedented change about AI. That's true. But when you look back at human resources history, there are a lot of revolution, like cognitive revolution or agricultural revolution, or religious revolution, industrial revolution. There are a lot of revolutions that change the landscape completely. Why don't we learn from there? Why don't we get some insights from there and then look what we have to do and then what we can do in the future? So this is a very important exercise for leaders in HR.
It's so easy to get overwhelmed by the emerging AI technology, but in the history, we have came through the same kind of stuff many times.
Yes.
So why not look back on it? That's a great idea. So I think the concept of this podcast is already clear.
Well, let me add one thing. I know there are many people who try to do this. Who are trying to do this to get insights from historical events or non-business, the topics like sports. But the value of our podcast and blogs, by the way, you can also read our blog, is that we look at HR practices in details. And we also learn and study HR trends. And in myself, I work in the HR domain, like right now. So I believe we are good at connecting these insights into real HR problems, right? So this is the value we can add through this podcast.
Okay, that's cool. But probably people who are listening to this podcast, I think they're wondering what actually we are going to talk about. What kind of historical events we're going to talk about. Can you probably give us some examples of historical events that are relevant to modern HR practices?
Sure, but that's something we want our listeners to learn by hitting the follow button, right? So I'm not gonna spoil too much, but of course I can give you some gist of it. For example, we will probably talk about the recruitment system of the Roman Empire because it can provide a lot of insights into modern recruiting practices. Roman had a highly organized recruitment system that allowed them to build one of the most powerful armies in history.
Okay, that's very exciting. I can't wait to listen to that episode.
Right, and also another example, in the 15th to 16th century in Japan, there was a type of samurais called ronin. So they were basically samurais, but they didn't have a lord to serve. So they are kind of like gig worker or freelance. They don't have a specific employer. Their career was very interesting because they needed to navigate their careers and then polish their skills by themselves. Right, so it can be quite interesting for so-called gig economies.
That could be a really interesting lesson for me because I am actually starting my new career as a freelance. So would you suggest that I learn from the Ronins?
Yes, exactly. And also very important to understand what's different from you and Ronin. We cannot just apply the analogy to your own situation. So you really need to think deeply. But essentially, yes, you are Ronin. That's what I meant.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So to sum up, in this podcast series, we will dive into historical events and draw connections between the past HR strategies and present challenges. And this series aims to serve as a guideline for business professionals and managers in exercising HR strategies.
Yes, and as an enjoyable way for all listeners to learn about history. So please don't forget to hit the follow button, and I encourage you to share your feedback and questions. And also, please don't forget to share our podcast with others.
Thank you, Jin. We are recording this introductory episode at the very, very end of December 2023, right? It must be the beginning of January when this episode will be released. So, Jin, what will be your New Year resolution?
My New Year resolution. So 2024, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can record this, but I'm seriously thinking about pursuing a degree in history.
Oh, that's exciting.
I'm a big history lover, but my learning style is really to follow the frameworks or standardized curriculum and then learn holistically. And then after that, I can build my own style. So I kind of want to, learn with a standardized curriculum from a prestigious university or something like that. So that's my resolution for 2024.
That's really, really cool. I mean, you shouldn't really say your New Year resolution in front of people, right? Otherwise, it won't come true.
Well, there are a lot of different school of thoughts for that because sometimes people say you shouldn't share your dream with others, right?
Right, but Jin, at least you must not forget to add to your resolution list the success of this podcast.
Sorry, I forgot about that.
Don't forget.
How about yours?
I only have one resolution, which is the success of this podcast, and the other resolutions I don't say.
Okay. So you didn't care about my resolution. That's fine.
It's gonna be a big year for it.
Yes, I hope so too.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and welcome to the Crossroads of History and Human Resources. We wish you all Happy New Year, and we look forward to having you with us in the next episode.
Bye-bye.